Well, hello and welcome to another video by Financial Learning. On today's video, we're going to take a look at CleanSpark Inc.'s August mining numbers. That's right, the month is over, which means we can take a look at things such as their average daily Bitcoin mined, also the overall Bitcoin they produced in the month of August. We're going to take a look at potentially what that profit margin looks like. I'm using things from their previous 10Q, as well as global hash rate and a few other key items in order to calculate that. And then based off of that, they can HODL the remaining Bitcoin that they produce this month, or they have the option to go ahead and spend that Bitcoin in order to scale operations. And when they scale operations, they have a couple of different things they could do. They could either continue purchasing more ASICs and infrastructure to increase hash, or they could start looking at the HPC AI cloud compute. Love to get your thoughts on that in the comments below. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, and taking a look at the far left, you're going to see from their Bitcoin wallet address. This is what I'm able to use each day in order to calculate their daily Bitcoin mining amount. And now looking at that daily Bitcoin mining amount, we can see that the highest amount of daily mined, it says August 28th, but that's when it was reported. It was actually for August 27th, and it was 21.6555. Now, moving up, I want to take a look at that average Bitcoin mined. They had a very consistent month. They did have curtailment. Last month, we know they used about 41 of their 50 exahash, and it looks like they probably did about the same thing this month in August. And based on energy rates and seasonality, I think we're going to see a lot of the same in September. We may see a little bit of additional hash rate as they bring on more efficient miners, but we'll have to wait and see how that comes out next month. And I will be calculating that each day on X. And I'll probably put out another mid monthly review for you all on YouTube. Now, looking at that average Bitcoin daily mine, it was 21.1507. And then looking at the overall Bitcoin mine for the month, it came in at 655.67 Bitcoin. And looking at the total July HODL was at 12,703. I do estimate that they've sold about 373 in order to cover operational expenses. So that would include energy costs, that would include their SG&A, and also it would include that Coinbase line of credit interest. So looking at all of that and subtracting that, they have the option to add to their HODL and bring their HODL up to 12,986 Bitcoin. So based on that information, we'll have to see just how much they sell. They should be putting out their press release any day now here early in September. So I will be waiting for that and would love to share the results with you all. Now, moving on past that, I want to look at their daily revenue for Bitcoin. And you can see the best daily revenue amount came again reported on August 11th. It was for August 10th, and it was $2,609,830. Now, looking at the average amount of Bitcoin mined each day, and then looking at that average revenue amount, that puts them at an average price of Bitcoin mined here in the month of August at $114,784. So again, that is just the revenue mined. That does not necessarily mean that that is the average price that they sold. We'll have to wait for their operational update to see just when they sold the majority of their Bitcoin. If they sold it near the beginning of the month, then they would have actually done pretty well because the price of Bitcoin did drop the last week or so here in August. Now, taking a look at the overall revenue for the month based on their Bitcoin mining amount, it came in at $75,261,068. So, still a pretty strong month in terms of revenue for CleanSpark. Even though they had curtailment, they were able to keep significant margins and be able to hodl some additional Bitcoin or utilize to scale their business without touching shareholder equity. I think that's a really important thing that CleanSpark has been committing to do. And it's based off the fact that it is still a very much undervalued stock. If you look at the fair value versus what it's trading at, it's pretty much neck and neck right now. So there is no forward guidance, or I should say, forward premiums on the specific stock. So keep your eye on that from a fundamental standpoint. Not saying I know where the actual price is going to be at, And none of this is financial advice, just for educational purposes only. But just keep that in mind when you are looking at fundamentals of a company and see if it's correlating with the share price or not. Now, moving on past that, on the yellow column on the far right, this is going to be that daily global hash rate. And I do have the average daily hash rate, and that came in at 949.39 exahash. And that is what I use in order to calculate the energy costs for the Bitcoin mining for CleanSpark. And we'll take a look at that on the next slide. And just as a reminder, I do have the July numbers here on the far right in red. And I did have the Bitcoin break even price at $60,791 in the month of July. We'll take a look at August on the next slide. And looking at some of the July profits, they were around 46% profit margin. And again, in July, I was not including the Coinbase line of credit as part of their costs. I have added that into the August amount. So when we look at cash flow, know that we'll also be subtracting for that monthly interest rate on that Coinbase line of credit. So looking at all this information, and I'm calculating the overall HODL or treasury value based off of the latest Bitcoin price. And as of this recording, it was $109,050. I do have the overall HODL treasury coming in at $1,416,133,000. So a pretty significant HODL. And again, that's an estimate based off of what I believe they could have added to their treasury if they chose to sell more Bitcoin in order to scale their business. We'll have to wait and see. All right, and taking a look at this slide on the top left, you're going to see the hash rate for the month of August. Just to give you a visual of how it did, you can see it was chopping up a pretty good amount, somewhere between, let's say, 750 to a little over 1,000 exahash, and that's when it settled there around the 950 exahash for the month. Now, I do have some of the July numbers on the far left. So if you'd like to take a look at those, just as a reminder how CleanSpark did last month, definitely take a look at that. I did use the actual hash rate and efficiency that they provided on the latest update in order to be able to help calculate the overall energy cost to mine the Bitcoin. The last disclosed amount of efficiency on their mining fleet was 16.07 joules per terahash. I have that in the yellow box near the bottom here. And I'm using their average energy cost for the last quarter, which was $0.057 per kilowatt hour. So again, around 5.5 or so cents per kilowatt hour was the cost of energy for CleanSpark. I'm assuming they have curtailed in order to maintain this specific number for margin purposes. Again, I could be a little bit off on this one, but this is just my estimation. Now, taking a look at the overall cost for the month, you're going to see I have their Bitcoin break even price up to $63,343.95. It has increased because the global hash rate from an average standpoint increased. And taking a look at the overall energy portion, it was $45,058. So I do have their professional fees, payroll, and G&A expenses up to date from the latest quarterly earnings. And then I have the overall month to date, which would be the full month of August, the energy plus SG&A, all of those costs coming in at $41,532,000. Now, looking at their overall profit margin, so knowing that they made a little over 75 million on their Bitcoin mining and then subtracting this August cost comes in at $32,492,000. So that is their profit. That puts them at a profit margin percentage of 43.17%. So still very nice numbers. And of course, this is without depreciation being taken into account because depreciation is not actually taken away from their cash flow. It is just a number they use in order to be able to help reduce their tax burden. And then they do need to be putting away a certain amount of money so that they can purchase additional ASICs once those ASICs reach their depreciation age. But for the purposes of cash flow, I'm not using that in the calculation. So some of you may say, well, I've seen other people post that the cost for CleanSpark is a little over $100,000. That is with depreciation added in. So again, I'm not adding that, but I am adding in that Coinbase line of credit interest rate because they will be needing to pay that on a month-to-month basis. So taking a look at the cash flow statement, you can see the last cash and cash equivalents came in at $34,553,000, and that was on their latest 10Q. And their Coinbase line of credit, the remaining amount that they do have at their disposal is about $25.5 million. That's because they did disclose on that quarterly earnings just how much of that Coinbase line of credit they had used, and they had used $174,500,000. Now, looking at the overall cost without depreciation, this would be the quarterly cost so far. So, taking a look at both July and August, the overall cost would be $84,796,374. And they did have some commitments that they did plan for this specific quarter coming up in order to be able to pay for some operations. Some of it was ASICs, some of it was infrastructure. The overall commitments was $57,689,000. So looking at those two numbers, looking at their cash equivalents, and Coinbase, the other thing to take note of is how much of their Bitcoin have they been selling to pay for operations. And that amount is $118,503,000. So if you think about it, they are definitely selling a little bit more than they need to this past month or so. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them do that again this month here in August, and they potentially are starting to put a little bit to the side either to pay for additional infrastructure or to pay for additional ASIC miners. So we'll have to see if they put out any press releases. Definitely keep your eye on their fleet to see if that fleet is starting to grow and if that efficiency rate is starting to drop as well. And looking at all of that, their month to date Bitcoin to HODL. So that remaining after selling for operations, they could put a total of 283.07 Bitcoin into their treasury. And I already shared what that treasury was on their previous slide. Now, taking a look at all that with their Coinbase line of credit, they would have still $36,071,000. And that is with already paying the quarterly cost to run the business plus this commitment amount. And without utilizing the remaining Coinbase line of credit, they would still have $10,571,000 of cash. So again, they've been doing a great job of paying for operations utilizing their Bitcoin production. And I don't see that changing as they continue scaling operations. It's just going to become more and more profitable because their SG&A is not scaling at the same rate. So that actually spreads that SG&A across all of the exahash. Now, looking at the interest paid each month, this is from that Coinbase line of credit at 8.5%. They pay about $1,236,000 a month. So these are my numbers. We'll have to wait and see when the press release comes out just how close I am. And if you want to hear my thoughts about potentially what they're going to do next besides hitting that 60 exahash, let me know and I'll drop a video for you all in the weeks to come. All right, and that about wraps it up for me, folks. Hope you enjoyed this quick update on CleanSpark's August monthly mining numbers. If you did like the video, consider giving it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts about CleanSpark's production. Do you think they should be hodling their remaining Bitcoin each month? Do you think they should sell some of that and scale operations? Do you think they should start working on other revenue streams? Would love to hear your thoughts on that. And with all that said, hope you all have a great rest of your day. Keep calm, hash on, and I'll catch you on the next one.